Hi, my name is Disha, and this is our third episode of Quarantine Cooking. And this is my sous chef Adish and my cameraman Fred. Today's episode will be Saag Paneer, which is a highly requested meal from all of my subscribers. So for this dish, it will require 16 ounces of spinach, so 2 of these bags, 1 full tomato, half an onion, a small amount of ginger, and about 2.5 to 3 cloves of garlic. It will also require paneer. So I usually buy the full block of paneer and fry it at my own will. I think you get more bang for your buck. But I know that these things come, there's 3 different ways it can come. It can come in this block like this. It can come packaged as cubes, and it can also come packaged as cubes and fried. So it all just depends on how much money you want to spend and how little time you want to spend cooking it. I personally don't mind frying it. I have a little bit more control over the texture, but to each their own. And I also want to introduce these spice packets. So I don't have one right now for Saag Paneer, but I'm a big fan of these spice packets. You can get them at the Indian store, and they have all the spices you need for the dish, plus salt. And so it really requires very little work after that point, and they're quite good. This one is actually already kind of cooked in oil, so you have to use it a little bit sooner, but this is an all dry powder. Today I don't have a spice packet for Saag Paneer, or else I would have definitely used that, so we're going to make the recipe from scratch. And then lastly, I have heavy whipping cream. If you don't have that in your house right now, you can substitute it with a little bit of butter and milk to make your own cream. It's really to just have a kind of creamy, a little bit of a cream to the dish at the end. And last but not least, we have our spice bin. So this is if you don't have a spice packet. We have turmeric, garam masala, chili powder, cumin seeds, and the cumin coriander blend that we'll be using since we're making the spices. We're doing the spices from scratch. Oh, one more thing. Salt. So we're not going to have a ton of chopping to do tonight. We're going to do most of it with the blender, and so we have a really nice blender which is good for making the onion and the tomato into a paste. But if you don't have a good blender, I would recommend just running your blender as much as you can and getting it into a smoothie. You can also use a NutriBullet. For the smaller things like the onion and the tomato, you can even use a coffee grinder and help to get it into as much of a paste as possible. If you do have a block of paneer, I'll show you how to cut it. It's pretty simple, but you want to make it big enough to have some substantial paneer taste when you bite into it, but not big enough that it's gonna just not have that crispy coating around it from frying. So I would make it into chunks about this size. You could even go a little bit smaller than that. It's all preference. If you like them smaller, easily make them smaller. There is no good substitute for paneer, so don't try to substitute it with tofu unless you're trying to make a completely different dish. The paneer you can get from an Indian store. You can also even get a block of paneer from Costco. And so when I've gotten the block before, what I'll do is cut it all up at once and then just fry a little bit at a time as I use it. So I'm going to use 2 pans for this dish. One is to fry the paneer and one is to make the saag. First thing we're going to do is wilt down the spinach. So you'll take all your spinach, fit it into the pan as you can. Spinach wilts down quite a bit, so it's okay if it looks a little cramped at first. And I'm going to add a cup of water. I'm going to cover it with my lid. And put it on medium heat for about 5 to 7 minutes. Okay. Change of plans. The onion was too small for our blender to be able to handle it, so I moved to a coffee grinder. And I took the onion that it was able to grind down and put it in here. It will instantly make your eyes water since it's raw onion being blended. So it doesn't have to be that paste-like, and honestly in general it doesn't need to be a paste. You can cut it really small, but as you guys know I don't like onion, and therefore I like it to be as small and pasty as possible. And so now you can see our spinach has wilted down quite a bit. Since our blender is made of steel, we can put the spinach in directly into our blender, but if you have a plastic blender, please wait until this cools down before putting it in there. Okay, we took our tomato and put it in the blender to make a paste. It has like that kind of consistency to it. And then we took our spinach, wilted down, and we're going to make that into a paste as well. So you'll have about this kind of puree texture to it. If you're not able to achieve that, try putting a little bit of water in until you do. And then to clean the blender, I just kind of swish some water around and pour it in there, and that will also be cooked on medium heat, and I'm putting enough oil to cover the base of the pan. Once you hear the mustard seeds popping, you can put in your onion paste first. And I'm going to move my heat to low. It's going to take a little bit of time for the onion to cook, but like we said before, once you add acid, the vegetables take a lot longer to cook, and so you have to make sure you cook the onion first, because we will be adding tomato pretty shortly. Once it starts getting this light brown color, I'm going to add our munched ginger and garlic in. I'm going to let it cook until the ginger and garlic starts getting a light brown color to it. So I've had the onions cooking for about 6 minutes on its own, on low heat. Alright, I actually let it cook for about 5 minutes. It definitely depends on how hot your stove is and everything like that, but just make sure you cook until you start seeing a little bit of light brown in the garlic and ginger. At this point, I'm going to add the tomato paste. And with the tomato paste, I'm going to add in our spices. If you have your spice packet, this would be a good time to put it in, but we're going to put in our spices individually. I put 1½ teaspoons of chili powder, 1½ teaspoons of garam masala, a teaspoon of turmeric, a teaspoon of the cumin and coriander powder. I'm also going to add in a teaspoon of salt. So I'm going to let this all cook on medium-low heat for a little while. Alright, I let it cook for 3 minutes, and I'm going to add in the spinach. With the spinach paste or puree, I also put in a cup of water. Kind of a side note, You can see how green the spinach is. And when you go to an Indian restaurant, it's not this green, and that's mainly because they put in a ton of cream and butter, which makes it taste great. But this is what it originally starts out as. Alright, so I've mixed it all together, and I'm gonna cover it for about 3 minutes on medium heat. Moving it to a little bit lower heat so it doesn't bubble as much, and we're gonna let it sit like this for about 7 minutes, continuously mixing. At this point, I'm going to personally add a little bit more water to mine because I have a lot of paneer and I want to make sure that there's enough saag to cover it all. So I'm adding about a half more cup of water. Alright, we let it cook covered for 3 minutes and uncovered for 7 minutes. If you noticed while you were mixing, it was pretty important to mix it frequently or else things would get stuck on the bottom. So you can have a little bit of a taste. I already tasted it. This is good heat and salt level for me, but please feel free to add more as you want. I'm going to turn off the stove and cover this for a little while we fry the paneer. Alright, to fry the paneer, I'm actually going to let my cameraman Fred take over. Even though he won't admit it, he's really good at it. And so I'll hand it off to him.
Alright. So, I usually use peanut oil because it has a very high smoke point, I think 500 degrees or something like that. So it's great for frying. I'm going to add some more oil. Just want to make sure that you have the bottom of the pan covered in a pretty thick layer. I have the heat on low. Let's see how these do. Just to see if you can get a good demonstration. I'll only do this many. Okay. So what you're going for is at least like 3 sides that are brown, and it should be squishy. And I'll take really all of these out now.
So the big thing to notice is it's probably better to start on a lower heat. It's very easy to quickly burn these. Alright, we're going to take our spinach mixture back, put it on low heat, and now add the paneer in. So personally, I think it tastes great. You don't really need a ton more cream, but it does help with giving the right color, and it is also kind of nice to have a little bit of a buttery taste to it. So I'm going to add just a really small amount of whipping cream. And you'll be able to see that it pretty dramatically changes the color. Alright, I let it cook with the paneer on low for about 3 minutes. This is just to heat up the paneer with the saag. And that is the end of the dish. So you can eat this with naan or rice or quinoa or whatever you'd like. It can be eaten for about maybe like a week. You can put it in the fridge. And that's about it. So thanks for watching.